Hi everybody, Karen here. Welcome to Thursday, April the 22nd, Office Hours with Dr. K. Today we're going to talk about a really important exercise that has foundationally helped me with work-life balance. How to manage work-life balance when you work from home. But it can apply to anybody in any work-life-home balance situation. So this week's blog post is called Establish Work-Life Boundaries with Your Ideal Week Plan. I'm looking at my blog post over here. Wrote it a few weeks ago. I just want to make sure I stick to the script. So some of you know my story. I'm a music professor and I'm a department chair for the second time. And the first time I was a department chair, there were no work-life boundaries. I worked all the time. And I think many of us feel that way, especially now since so many of us work from home. If you have the kind of job where you have some fluidity in your hours, you can make your own hours. Like in academia, we can make our own hours, especially as long as we hit our deadlines and we're prepared for things, then, as long as we get the work done, it doesn't really matter when we do it. Except the danger of that, from the outside, that's like, oh great, you get to make your own hours. Yes, I do. But it means it's also really hard to figure out when not to work. And so we tend to work all the time. And it's gotten a lot harder for so many people. I hear this so much. It's gotten so much harder since everybody's working from home. So when I was department chair before COVID, I had a really hard time. And I knew that I was going to be chair again after a 2-year break. And I knew I had to figure this out. So this was one of the projects that I really worked on, was how to establish my work-life separation. So also some of you know I found the Full Focus Planner by Michael Hyatt. I've talked about it before. It's great. It's always on my desk. It's never far from me. And I've got this. It's purple this quarter. And in it, there's an exercise called the Ideal Week. And I want to talk about that today because that probably, I'm not going to say more than anything else. Getting to inbox zero, I think, has been the most foundationally important and life-changing. But the ideal week is so crucial for how to strategize what your work and life boundaries will look like. So when's the last time you've really thought, if you struggle with this, when's the last time you really thought about where exactly do I want those boundaries to be and what's a reasonable expectation for setting those boundaries? I'll get into that in a minute. So often we think about work-life boundaries when we don't have them. And we complain or bemoan the fact that, I work all the time, I don't have any work-life boundaries, whatever. But we tend not to think or know how to, we may not think about how to make that separation. So especially if you're a creative night owl like me, one of the things that you probably end up doing is you work late into the night, right? And then it becomes really hard to lock things down. And about that, actually, I've just updated my PDF download for people if you want a really great guide on how to help tackle bedtime procrastination. I've got a PDF download on my website. Just go to my website, theessentialmusician.ca, and you'll just scroll down any page and it'll pop up. It's a good one. I just updated it this week. Very proud of myself. But if you're a creative night owl, you'll stay up late working. And I was guilty before of sending work emails at 11 at night or so and getting responses from my colleagues because it's just what we do. But it's so not healthy. It's so not healthy. So one of the things about the ideal week is basically what you're doing is you're planning when you're going to do the general kinds of things. And we call it ideal because it's never going to be perfect, but you can try. And one of the great things about this exercise is you can revisit your ideal week plan as your needs change. So if you're in education, I'm in academia, I'm a professor, and in Canada we have 12-week semesters, so classes ended 2 weeks ago. So my ideal week during the academic year looks very different than it does, in July, and looks very different than it does right now when there's still a lot of administration to do. So as an academic administrator, I walk that fine line between a totally fluid schedule and having to fit into the 8:30 to 4:30 university administrative schedule. It's very tricky, especially for us night owls. But you know what? I'm doing it and it's working. So I want to help you out a little bit with that. So let's talk about the analogy of rocks and sand. You've probably all heard this story, and I don't know who came up with it, and I'll probably get it wrong, but it's basically this. There was a professor, and he had, in his class, he had a jar, and he had some rocks, and he had some sand, and he said, okay, class, let's look what happens when we put the sand in first. So put the sand in first, then he put the rocks in. You know what happens. The rocks don't fit. Then he dumped the sand out, and he said, okay, let's put in the rocks first. So he put in the big rocks, then he poured in the sand, and the sand found its way through, and it fit in, and then everything fit. Magic. What's the analogy? When you're doing your ideal week plan, the idea is you put in your big rocks first. What are your big rocks? The big rocks are things, I start with things that have to be there. So one of my first big rocks is, what do I want my 40-hour work week to look like? Now this right here was the most foundationally important change that is helping me manage the load of being an academic chair when I can make my own hours. But there's an expectation that the hours be at a certain time. And being a night owl, I really struggle with, I work best at night, so, whatever. So my big rocks then are, my one big rock, the biggest rock is Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. And then I tweak it from there. And then I have time that I spend doing my side business like this. So this is why you won't usually see me online, or you won't see me doing Facebook Lives or anything like that during the day, because it's my work time. And then there's, weekends, things that I do on the weekends. So you put in your big rocks. If there's family time that's important to you, put it in. I put in lunch times. Those are fluid, but they're in because the kids are home all year from school. So I try to have lunchtime with them. Dinner times, I'm always at the dinner table with the kids. That's a rock that goes in. There are certain things that I do at certain times, and I do my best to protect those. But that 9 to 5, that 9 to 5 for me as an academic administrator was crucial. And then what really happens when you do that is, especially for me as a recovering work from work all the time person, is I know that in my ideal week plan, if I give myself to my job 9 to 5 Monday to Friday, that is a reasonable amount of time to spend on my job. And anything outside of that is an unreasonable expectation. Of course, there are times when I have to work weekends. I'm not talking about my other job. I'm a conservatory examiner. I do all those other things. I'm not talking about that. I spend 40 hours a week on my full-time job. Whereas before it was more, definitely more. I don't do that now. So if there's a week when I have auditions, for example, like last weekend, I spent 6 hours on Saturday doing auditions. So you know what? I'm knocking those 6 hours off my weekly time the next week or that week. I don't just extend it. So there's no longer the guilt that I'm not doing enough. Here's what's so interesting. This is why this is so important. I'll show you how to do it in a second. But this is why this is so important. I'm now able, and I work from home, it's my home. I'm now able, at the end of the workday, I know that I put in a reasonable amount of time, and I'm productive during that time. I can shut it down, and get this, I don't check my email. I don't check it unless I'm expecting something from the dean or something else, right? Or audition weekend. Otherwise, I am not in my work email. And of course, I've figured out how to manage my email. I've got a whole blog post on Inbox Zero. Those two things. And for the first 2 weeks when I decided, okay, I'm not checking my email after hours, I was having withdrawal. It was like, pick up the phone and it's just automatically you're going to check your email. I don't do it now. All my notifications are off, nothing. So, and you know what? What else happens? Here's what's so interesting. It used to be when I was trying to practice at night or whenever, I was always thinking about all the emails, all the work I should be doing, all the things. Oh, I'm so behind, blah, 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 blah. I don't feel that anymore. So when I sit down to practice, I know that it's time. That's not my day job, even though practicing is part of my day job. But the real big one was I really needed to be able to work on my business on the side 100% guilt-free. And you know what? I do. So the ideal week exercise. If you have a fluid schedule, if you have the kind of job that changes all the time, you can do something like this. Change it as often as you need to. So here's what it looks like in the full focus plan. You don't have to use the full focus plan. This is just where I learned about it. So I know you can't really see this. I'm talking over it. So it's just an empty grid. And actually, I find this amusing. It's an empty grid. It's Monday to Sunday. And it's, okay, my friends who know me, you're going to laugh at this one. It starts at 5 a.m. and it ends at 9 p.m. Isn't that cute? 9 p.m. That's work time. That's work time. You don't have to use this. You can use a PDF printout or whatever. You can get them free online. Another way you can do it is you can use like a spreadsheet, or you can go a couple of weeks ahead in your calendar, or a couple of, like, not weeks, years ahead in your calendar to an empty spot in your calendar, and just poke around and move things around. Put in things like work, exercise, morning routine, which I do now. Even, yes, creative night owl, morning routine. I do that. Whatever, family time, just anything that's important to you that you want to protect, you put that in. And then the other things fit around. So now, if something comes up, and let's say someone gives me a range of times to have a meeting, and it falls outside of those categories, I'll choose a time that is inside of the categories, or I say no. That's what I do. Guilt-free. Because I know it's reasonable. I know that I'm giving a reasonable amount of time. Okay, so it totally worked. I didn't even expect it to, but it totally worked. And right now is a really good time to do it. You'll notice that my ideal week is empty because I haven't done it yet. But I was talking to my husband about it and saying, okay, we're going into a slower period. I don't have classes anymore. My marking will be done in a couple of weeks. When all that is done, the marking's heavy, but when all of that's done, I don't need to work 9 to 5 all the time anymore. I can work maybe 9 to 2 and then be on call for my emails, but that's going to be my work time. And then other than that, let's figure out where things can go. Where do you need me to be available? Where can I have my deep work time? That's just mine. So then, include your family members in that, and maybe they have an ideal week too that they want to do, and you got to see how they mesh together. It's great. It's just, it doesn't take long. Maybe it goes faster and faster every time. There's another little nuance to this in the Michael Hyatt system. He says when you're booking your big rocks during your day. So I'm like, he trains like business people, but from my standpoint, I've got my 9 to 5 Monday to Friday, and within that, you can choose to have similar kinds of activities on certain days. So in my case, he says you should have some days that are what he calls front stage or on stage. So those are things like actually, performing, but being in front of people. Maybe you're having meetings, maybe you have to actually put on pants and leave the house, whatever. Actually, this would be considered front stage, what I'm doing right now. And then you have days where you're backstage or you're in preparation. So you could be practicing, or you could be doing course prep, or you could be, whatever, doing things that you have to do, the administrative stuff that doesn't involve actually dealing with people. So those of us who are introverts who like working at home, those are my favorite days. And then you have the offstage time, and those are the days when you don't do anything. And so when I planned my academic year, because I can plan some of this, where I put my lessons, of course I put in my classes, and then around that, I put my lessons within a certain time frame. So I had Mondays completely to do admin, Fridays completely to do admin. I didn't have meetings on those days usually, unless the dean calls a meeting. And I got so much done. And this year, more than any other year, while I'm a chair during COVID of a music department, my work-life balance has never been better. This works great, you guys. I'll sign off. Been talking too long as usual. Again, if you're a creative night owl and you struggle with bedtime procrastination, please grab my freebie. I think it will really help you. And it's just go to theessentialmusician.ca and grab it. It's there. It'll pop up. So thankful for you to tune in, and have a good week. Have an ideal week. Cheesy. Plan your ideal week. Let me know how it goes. I really want to know how it works for you. Take care. Bye.